Hi, I'm Tony Williams, and this is Brooklyn Savvy.
Hi, I'm Tony Williams, and welcome to Brooklyn Savvy. I am so delighted to have as my personal guest the president of Brick Arts Media Brooklyn, Christina Newman Scott. She has just burst on the scene at Brick and made such a tremendous difference. So I want Brooklyn and beyond to know exactly who this lady is and the great work that she's doing on behalf of Brooklynites and also just in the art and culture space in general. So hi, Christina, how are you?
Hi, Tony Yule. It's so wonderful to be here with you. Obviously, you are one of my favorite people, not only in Brooklyn, but in general. So thank you for having me on your show.
Certainly. Now, I want Brooklyn and beyond to know who you are.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about your background prior to coming to Brick Arts Media Brooklyn. I'm just going to call it Brick.
Yes, absolutely, because that's what we are now. We're just Brick, but you've seen us through many iterations, and
absolutely.
So you know
from the fund of the borough of Brooklyn.
Exactly,
but I don't want to go back that far. Not that far. Yes.
Right up to now as just Brick. So my background, I started as a practicing artist in Kingston, Jamaica, where I am from. I studied painting and installation art. And I moved to the States after, living and working in Jamaica. I moved to the States when I was 30.
And I was 30?
30. Yes.
Oh my gracious. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a real yachty, born in.
Yes. You're Jamaican. Yes.
I'm from Jamaica. I was traveling back and forth my whole life, right? So it wasn't like I wasn't familiar with the States, but I did not live full time in the States. So I was working after art college in not only doing my own work as a painter and exhibiting my work, but I was also working in television and radio and film. When I moved to the States, I started to develop my curatorial muscle, and I got a job as a visual arts coordinator at a contemporary art center and really grew my curatorial voice, working with amazing artists and arts leaders in Connecticut. Then I was in Boston. I got an opportunity after that to work as the director of programs for the Boston Center for the Arts, and really built a muscle there around program strategy, program design, and starting to think about the role of arts in community. And that led me to moving back to Hartford to become the first immigrant and woman of color to run arts and culture for the city as a marketing events and cultural affairs director. And then that led me to being the first immigrant and woman of color to run arts and culture for the entire state of Connecticut, which I worked as the director of culture under Daniel Malloy in the Department of Economic and Community Development. So what's really interesting coming to Brick is that I carry with me a background of over 20 years of experience working as a curator, a practicing artist within media, within community and economic development, within policy, and coming to an amazing institution like Brick, I bring that full breadth of experience, and I'm learning and continuing to develop, but building off of that. And Brick is the ideal organization. We work.
So talk about how it is the ideal organization.
Because for over 40 years, and you know this, Tony, for over 40 years, Brick has been deeply rooted in the community. We're quite unique because we're the public access center for the borough, right? So you don't find that public access centers are standalone, like MNN, like BronxNet, like QPTV. Brick has the beautiful, kind of collaboration, cross-disciplinary opportunity with media at our core, because we have a long history in contemporary art. We have a long history in performing arts. We've presented one of the city's longest running free music festival.
Celebrate Brooklyn.
Celebrate Brooklyn. So I when I was interviewing for the position at BRIC, it seemed like such a fantastic opportunity for me to work for an institution that it's rare that an institution has interest and passion and relevance in all those spaces.
Interesting. Now, of course, COVID has hit.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and of course, the killing of George Floyd.
Yes.
So let's talk about where is the institution now and what are some of the challenges? How have you navigated this space? Because I know that you've done some pretty remarkable things during this time.
Thank you. It's been, I am so proud of the team at BRIC. We definitely, the board and through the board's leadership, really ensured that we protected our workforce. So we didn't lay anybody off. We didn't furlough. We didn't cut salaries.
Well, that's very special right now.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of unheard of. You are
Yes.
really in the minority of art and cultural organizations.
Yes.
Right.
We made that strategic decision. And I think that I completely, we had the ability to do so, but it was by no means an easy decision. It wasn't like we saw, oh, this is coming down the pipeline. This is how we're going to figure this out. We actually just leaned into the unknown. And what we decided to do was protect our people first, because you cannot innovate if your people are scared, if they're worried about their jobs, if they're coming to work every day, carrying the weight of not only COVID, but also the pandemic of discrimination and injustice outside of the pandemic. It was too much. So because our people at BRIC, our team felt cared for, we were able to innovate and take risks. And some things we learned a lot. We failed at some things. We were like, what's that? That's not working. And we built additional skill sets in ways that we never thought we could have. And so it really accelerated our strategic plan, which we completed last fall. It really moved us 1 year faster. Like
You took a leap. You were able to take that leap.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you were also able to do a bit of reimagining in this particular opportunity in a weird way. This was an opportunity for some.
Yes, and I think that the pre-pandemic days for an institution like BRIC are gone. We're not ever going back there. We're not going back there in terms of how our workforce was structured. We're not going back there in terms of our delivery of our services and programs. We're not going back there in terms of our engagement and connectivity with the community. We've learned so much about how to engage during this moment. We're going to be building off of what we learned. So there's no kind of sitting around waiting for us all to get vaccinated so we can go back to what it was like in February of last year.
Yeah, one of the challenges, because to just be totally transparent, I've been involved with BRIC for a very long time.
Yep.
But one of our persistent issues was getting out to under-resourced communities. Now, when we're talking about everything going virtual, how do you reach out to those communities that might be suffering from the digital divide?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that was front of mind for us. I think it was April, we met as a team and we said, how do we take this opportunity, especially with the digital divide in mind, to be of service? So we called the Department of Education, who we have had a long partnership with, as you know. We're in over 40 public schools pre-pandemic, and during the pandemic, we're still servicing over 30 public schools remotely. But we recognized and we heard from principals and superintendents and other executives in DOE that, and we all know this, the digital divide in New York City is massive.
And real, and very real.
It is so real. And young people
It impacts people of color.
Predominantly people of color. So because we are in over 500,000 homes across Brooklyn as the public access provider, we said to the DOE, what can we do to help you in this moment? And so we innovated and came up with a program that allowed us to take content from the Department of Education. We edited the content that they provided us, and then we just simply aired it on our channels, 3 hours, 4 hours of content every day. Now, that doesn't solve the issues. We have challenges, we have a steep hill to climb, but we did hear that it was truly impactful for kids who didn't have Wi-Fi or for kids who didn't have access to technology, because they could turn on their television and access educational content. And so that was very important to us. And we just started to ask more questions. And that's something that I'm calling rigorous curiosity. Like we lead with
I love the way you frame things. Rigorous curiosity. I love that.
We just need to ask more questions.
Absolutely.
And that's, people will tell us what they need. Artists will tell us. The community will tell us. Audiences will tell us. And we should stop.
And we need to listen.
We need to listen. And I think that, and I'm guilty of it oftentimes too, right? Like I've worked in the arts sector for over 20 years. I know some stuff for sure, but there's a lot I don't know. And I think that sometimes in nonprofits, we get in our own way because we believe we know. So we don't practice rigorous curiosity. And I am making sure that I gut check myself and make sure that I move out of my own way and remember that I need to be asking more questions. And I think that's happening a lot at BRIC right now. And we're learning a lot because of it.
I love that, moving out of your own way. Now, I want to talk about something that's probably a tad bit more sensitive, which is this growing conversation around leaders, the fact that leaders of art and cultural institutions are for the most part white. Many of them are male.
Yep.
And here you are in this place, you know, how, because you're bringing a unique perspective, being a woman of color, how is that perspective and those values trickling down into your institution?
Look, I think that it is, and for my entire career in America, I've had to navigate spaces as the first one or the only one, like you have, Tony, in the corporate space. I mean, you know, I believe that it's my job to ensure that I stop being the only. I don't want to be the only one. I don't want to be one of the few. I want to be one of the many, right? And I've learned a lot in this country, and also because I grew up in a different country. Like I grew up and lived a full, you know, I was an adult when I left Jamaica. I think how I show up in spaces culturally, because I grew up in a country that was over 90% Black.
Right.
I grew up with my father and my, you know, I grew up not having some of the, not that we have a lot of colorism issues. We have a lot of
embedded consciousness.
There's a lot of class prejudice and colorism in Jamaica.
Yes.
For sure. Don't get me wrong, which is it's the worst when you have that amongst your own people that are all right. Like
especially colorism.
Right, exactly. How are we going to be doing that, right? But I do think that we show up differently because we didn't have to live with, you know, white supremacist structures in the way that they manifested in America. Of course, they exist from, you know, the British rule, right? There's more power still and wealth within white Jamaica, but it's different than Ku Klux Klan. It's different than the way that Black Americans have had to navigate these spaces. So I would say that you have to meet people where they're at. And I know that's getting harder and harder and harder. But in order to have a full conversation and to hear each other, I've learned to practice patience more, but it is exhausting. Not in this position in particular, but in my career, it does become exhausting as a Black woman in the contemporary art world for as long